We have two guests today. Our first guest is Muhammad Salman Anjum, who is an esteemed speaker, TED speaker with 18 years of experience in the technology field. He's a project lead of Avantas Tech Accelerator and have done blockchain projects for organizations like Makkah Municipality, International Civil Aviation Association, and other GCC cities. He would be presenting his new startup, MEDsLOCK. MEDsLOCK is a blockchain-based platform that will be providing real-time, which we need at this time, COVID-19 insights to government agencies, health officials, and other important stakeholders responding to the pandemic. Our second guest is Mr. Jorge Sebastio, who is an advisor to both GBA UAE and Avantas. He's also Huawei's CTO of technology. George has over 30 years regional experience, ICT experience in covering cloud computing, cybersecurity, big data, managed services, you name it. He has done it and implemented it. His 360-degree advice would help us to understand how we can use the technology to fight this pandemic. So good evening, gentlemen, and good evening, Anjum from Pakistan.
Good evening, everyone, and from Pakistan, and wherever you are, hope everyone is safe and sound.
So we have an agenda today is that the first keynote speech will be done by George, and then Mr. Anjum is going to present his startup. After that, we're going to have a panel discussion, and finally, we're going to open the floor to the questions. So I'll hand over right now the presentation to Mr. George.
Okay, good afternoon and good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you here. We'll spend the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes together going over how blockchain can assist some of the issues that we're having today with the ongoing pandemic COVID-19, but not only similar events in healthcare would obviously benefit greatly from it. First, I just want to make sure Mohammed, can they see the screen and everything, and then we proceed. Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry, this technology always takes a bit of practice. Anyway, my name is Jorge Sebastio. We'll spend the next 15, 20 minutes together, during which I'll give you a bit of an appreciation about the usage of this blockchain technology in the context of pandemic COVID-19, but also other healthcare potential applications as well. So I'm part of GBO and GBA, where I assist as an advisor, and from time to time I do provide some quotes. This is an interesting quote from some time back, in which I think it's important to provide innovation, and that's what helps us solve business problems. Now, one may find very interesting that when we talk about blockchain, you're going to say, well, what's really blockchain have to do with all this problem? Well, primarily, we have to start at the beginning of what blockchain is and what blockchain is not. Blockchain is a technology of trust, and being a technology of trust, it provides us to have a look at how we can exchange and provide a common business reality. So that really means it allows us to really trust the information that we're disseminating. So where do we actually see the challenges and how we can help solve some of these challenges? Firstly, with this pandemic, I think one of the biggest problems that we have seen is really a multitude of fake news, sometimes even by important people. They shall remain nameless because that's not the objective here. But at the end of the day, it is important in such an important event that we have, and we need to cooperate together, that we get the right straight facts. Does a mask work? How effective it is? Shall we wear one? What kind of distance should we have between ourselves, whether we are walking in a store or we are outside doing a gym? And this should be based on scientific facts, not based on some unknown science that is being used by a lot of junk being disseminated, especially across WhatsApp groups. Another important element that needs to be addressed is the supply chain. Since we're talking about medical equipment, whether it happens to be respirators, whether it happens to be gowns, masks, or other protective equipment, we have noticed that there's been a lot of problems with it, whether it's delivering the right equipment or the equipment has perished or the dates don't make sense. The equipment is fake. So there's a lot of ongoing peddling. So we can imagine the impact of having a vaccine that has not been certified or a test that is unreliable being used. So it can lead obviously to a lot of fatalities and substantial amount of risks. In this context of the pandemic, government, organizations, politicians, medical, first responders, and many others need to share global information in a trusted way. So we have to ensure that that information is coming from the right source, that it's properly signed, authenticated, so they can make decisions based on this information. We're doing lots of tests. A small place like, for example, Bahrain, where I'm situated right now, we have done upwards of about 55,000 tests so far. So it is important that the test results be communicated and are accurate, because those will decide or whether we initiate treatment of somebody or whether we should quarantine this person or not, and many other actions. Should we notify people that have been in contact with this person since the last test results? We are also asking people to be quarantined. So how do we actually know who is under quarantine? How do we actually enforce this quarantine? What kind of technologies that are based on contact tracing, that are based on GPS? They are based on a multitude of technologies that combined together will ensure that the people remain in the areas that they were confined to, whether it happens to be in a hospital, their home, or a specific location that has been assigned for them to remain during the duration. On average today, it's about 14 days, but sometimes more in some other countries, depending. We're talking about sharing medical records. As you know, some people with certain medical records, whether you happen to have diabetes or other conditions, have more likelihood of being affected by this particular virus. So as we know, based on GDPR and others, that protecting medical records is quite a vital thing to do. So we need to make sure that this information, as it's being shared, also remains protected all at the same time. One of the key challenges has not just been testing, but it's once identified that somebody has been infected, who has this person been in contact with? So who has been in close proximity to this person? So then we notify these other people either to having these people being tested or these people being quarantined for a period of time to eliminate the risk. So contact tracing is also quite an important element of the information that needs to be quantified and shared during this specific epidemic. As we know, any case of medical, for some people it's a business. As we know, there will probably be lots of fraudulent claims associated with the treatments that are being provided. So how many patients were put on a respirator? How many patients were given a certain drug? What is the cost of this drug or the treatment that was given to them? to make sure that the funds that were allocated by governments go to the organizations that actually conducted these operations. We're also entering a new era of the COVID-19 vaccine testing. So we want to make sure that the tests that are conducted for those vaccines are trusted tests, so that there is auditability of where the tests were performed, what was the population on which they were, and what is the reliability of that vaccine. There is today probably around the world close to 100 vaccines that are all going to be competing for this important service and this important market. So this will make or break companies, or potentially kill substantial amount of lives if the information is not correct. So when we have something like blockchain, being a technology of trust, being a technology of decentralization, automation, encryption, validity, identity management, immutability, meaning you cannot change the information, we can ensure that any information that gets published scientifically or otherwise remains there for everybody to see, even if later on it needs to be updated or corrected with better and more up-to-date information. We're really talking about a combination of tools and systems that, by exchanging that information in a useful way, will enable us to be successful in fighting this pandemic in a much more effective way. So what are some of the more local and regional things that are happening that are actually contributing more specifically to combating this epidemic? So if we take a small country like Bahrain, they have released a mobile app called Be Aware that disseminates news, is used for quarantine purposes, used for contact tracing, can be used alone with your mobile and photo to ensure that you are really the person carrying that mobile, or can be used jointly with the GPS bracelet that also provides Bluetooth support. So this enables us to perform quite a lot of the operations that are required to make sure the right information gets to the right people, and we actually control the epidemic in a much more useful, practical way. UAE has got very similar application, although slightly different in its approach. But primarily it's about providing the right information and ensuring that people remain where they're supposed to be. Other organizations around the world and locally have also initiated things associated with blockchain to provide solutions. Consensus, which is the controllers of the key consulting associated with the Ethereum blockchain, have created an hackathon to develop solutions around the Ethereum blockchain to provide the best options in helping COVID-19. We have a new generation of blockchain 5.0 solutions that can help us provide proper identification based on biometric information with a high degree of accuracy. We also have locally Rebuild the Chain, which is a new thing just announced a few days or 1 or 2 days ago. That is information that will help us with some of the key functions associated with controlling this disease based on isolation, pre-screening, social distancing, exposure analysis, and card-based permission. But so far, one of the most comprehensive solutions has come from Canada. It's a company called DocItScreen around Waterloo that is integrating screening into the whole life cycle of health care records. We also have locally a solution that is developing a new virus tracker application based on AI technology. So call to action is basically initiating the creation of this mobile app to actually provide a more comprehensive solution to analyze the information being generated. And finally, we have MEDsLOCK provided by Avantas, which is combination of several modules that combine a lot of the information that I talked about, but can also be integrated quite easily into third-party or existing medical systems that provide a complete end-to-end solution. And I will leave it to Mohammed to go into this into a lot, much more detail. And this is my short overview about blockchain and COVID-19 and what is happening around us to basically move in the right direction. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and looking forward to chat together online or at future events.
Thanks, George. Thanks for it. Thanks. So now we're going to, let me enable my webcam. So we're going to now call Mr. Anjum to present. Mr. Anjum? Yeah.
Right. So can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah. George, can we have to disable the speaker so there's echo coming? No? Yeah. So go ahead, Mr. Anjum.
All right. So I'll take it from here. And again, a hello for everyone. And just a second, if I'll do a little bit of. All right. So as George has made a wonderful build-up for what the things are happening in the world of COVID. At the moment, we are living in the world of COVID. So the next best thing we can do in this world of COVID is to counter it. And technology, of course, is a big enabler. And one of the technologies that has an opportunity to show up and prove its mettle is blockchain. So blockchain, I believe, is not just based on like hype. It has a chance now to just show how important it can be into the future of like in the future we are going forward. So for that matter, like 3 weeks back, I was like seeing this as a thing that we can do something with the blockchain. As I was introduced as the managing director of Avantas Technology Accelerator, and also I'm part of the team of Max and Row. So we've been doing it for the governments already. So this is something we got an idea that we need to support governments now for the current challenge of theirs. So we don't want to like push the other solutions which are not needed at the moment. This is the most needed one. And we also find it an opportunity for the blockchain to show its mettle in a production grade environment. Now MEDsLOCK came into being in that like in this way. So I'll go forward, and George has mentioned few things about how technology, and specifically the technology of blockchain, can help in the scenario of COVID these days. So in the next slide, if I can go, it's a bit slow, but let's see. Yeah. So these are some of the questions George has asked, and try to he brought some projects who are trying to answer these questions in a silo. So what we did, we are incorporating many of the modules, as he himself mentioned during his presentation, that we try to introduce a lot of these things in one ecosystem, and that ecosystem now we are calling as MEDsLOCK. So what we are trying to achieve through MEDsLOCK, we are answering very, very critical questions, and some of those are, how can we build better transparency into the systems? Now, of course, the first user, of course, is the government, so they need to be having a trusted and transparent system to manage these for the citizens, and of course for themselves as well. Because again, going back to the George presentation, a lot has been happening around. Now procurements are happening for the medical purpose, for the isolation centers, for other areas. We need to be having a very secure system and a unified system to do that, and a transparent one. How can we increase the reliability of these our supply chains? And again, once we procure them, we need to pass them on to the relevant end usage points. payment systems. Donations are coming from the public to the government, from the private sector to the government sector, from the government sector to the private sector. Again, you need an information highway, a trusted information highway to establish that this is a transparent and a trusted system happening. Third, how can we better ensure the authenticity and the provenance of medical products and medications, as well as the credentials and readiness of the medical personnel? George briefly touched on this point as well, that yes, we need to now ensure that if the tests are happening, they are happening with the right SOPs. If they've been forwarded to the authorities, yes, they should be done in a proper trusted manner. The credentials of those people who are doing tests, the credentials of the medical staff who are doing treatment on the COVID positive cases should be intact, and they should be authenticated, so on and so forth. So the next point is, of course, how can we track citizens who have tested positive without undermining their rights of privacy? Yes, it's a serious issue at the moment, and the world is thinking about a balance between the safety through the privacy or safety through surveillance. Blockchain is again an enabler, and although it's not our primary scope at the moment to do a track and trace application, but yes, in coming modules we will be bringing and incorporating that feature into our MEDsLOCK. And finally, how can government efficiency provide newly needed services? Again, we have to be agreeing on this point that we are not going to remain in the same world as we were before COVID-19. There will be many new norms showing up, just like if I take you back to the 2001 incident and there was a terrorism attack, and after that travel, norms of the work, lifestyle got some new additions in it. And governments, of course, wanted to bring those. At that time, they were the influencers, and they brought those things. So now we will go through with the same passage again, but some we can visualize now, but most of them will come when the time will come. So a lot of go on kind of a situation and features we will have to embed in the architecture of the MEDsLOCK so that it can support the government authorities and other ecosystem players. So I go on to the next slide, which will be giving the it's just basically an monitoring, controlling, and communication app or ecosystem basically for the governments. And of course, once it will be with the governments, it will have a ripple effect on the other businesses, on the law enforcement agencies, and finally it will be having its effect on the public as well. And I'll come into the next slides and I'll explain how the common citizens will get benefit through the MEDsLOCK. So this slide is basically showing the, what is basically the ecosystem we are talking about, and why I say it's an trusted, a secure information highway creating MEDsLOCK is creating between this ecosystem. So you can see from right to left, from the central command and control centers of the governments to the international authorities, similarly the supply chains for the medical and other critical goods, private welfare entities who are doing welfare stuff, and donation bodies or public donations, then the law enforcement and the border control authorities. Imagine going from now, of course we are going through the travel bans, but going forward, the immigration authorities will definitely be interested to know what's our passengers' COVID status. So there can be a requirement for a proper certificate, a COVID status certificate, which the MEDsLOCK is enabling. So lockdown and critical zones status, what's happening there, what are the trends, when it started, when it will be going to finish, and what is the intensity, what are the measures being taken. So all that record or all that information is going to be kept in this MEDsLOCK. And then the media, businesses, education institutions, again, going forward, when people will go back to their businesses, employers will be interested about the status of their employees. So they can ask for the COVID status certificate. Education institutions can do the same. So the citizens will be the end beneficiary. So yes, the first hand user is, of course, the government central authorities who are taking care of the central disaster management or the COVID situation management. They are the first user, but the whole of the ecosystem will get connected through this MEDsLOCK and will get benefit. These are the deliverables, are the objectives. Let me like take back you from the MEDsLOCK and just give you the analogy or the spectrum. Basically, when you are dealing with the crisis situation, it is always threefold. The first attribute or first phase of any crisis is always a response stage. Most of the world is going through with that response stage. The second attribute of the phase is generally the recovery from that pandemic or crisis. And the third one is basically the preparedness for the next, or taking preventive measures for the next crisis of the pandemic in our situation of the COVID at the moment. So currently, as I said, the most of the world is facing the first part. We can say maybe China is, or some of the countries of Southeast Asia are in the phase of recovery. Rest, the whole world is at the moment in the response phase. So in response phase, how MEDsLOCK will be helpful? If we see on the bottom left of my slide, managing medical and other relevant data of outbreak of COVID-19. That's the foundation. We are approaching it grounds up. Like whenever you will have solid data with you, first of all, you have to have a very good data to perform the analytics. So the data through a unified, a structured way will be collected from different ecosystem points, and of course it will be kept into the trusted blockchain environment and will be dispersed or exchanged. Any kind of a transaction of that data happening between the ecosystem will always be kept also in the hash of the blockchain. So this is the first objective, or this is the first deliverable of MEDsLOCK: data and performance of that data through predictive analytics, and AI will be coming into the picture, which also is a feature of MEDsLOCK, that AI will be assisting the decision makers in this regard to take insightful decisions based on the data analytics. Moving up, if we see that advising media and citizens with the trusted information. So once the whole system data will be trusted, the whole process flow will be trusted by the ecosystem, and media will not be seeing it as a challenge. Where should they be getting a trusted information? This MEDsLOCK can be approached because it is governed under the central authority of that state or that country. So they will be having a one common platform, a trusted platform, which is immutable and obviously not going to be tampered with. So they will go and see. So can the citizens approach with this MEDsLOCK. Third is the synchronization of the supply chains for like any kind of a medical, food, or critical goods. So again, as we have already discussed, this is a paramount nature. Lot happening in the operations. We don't want after 3 months organizations blaming each other. No, that was the fault of that person or that organizations. Once we will ensure the unified way, a structured way of collecting data and transactions happening on that platform, I think we will be giving it a very good platform rather than having these some kind of fights in the boardrooms after like 3 months. Better to do it safely now on one unified system through blockchain. Same can be done for the coordinated efforts for the welfare activities and tracking of the donations. Governments always struggle to form some kind of a trust. This is a major operation the governments are dealing with, and a lot of governments been getting support from the private sector and of course from the public as well. So they can ensure the trust and through the system to their public that yes, we are collecting the data, the donations on, and you can track where it is going in efforts of the COVID outbreak preventions. I just mentioned about the issuance of e-certificates to the citizens for their official COVID-19 status. Just now in the response stage, we are not looking for it, but obviously once we will go into the recovery phase of the crisis management, this will be very much be the case. And there will be many more features like this appearing for the businesses or for the recovery phase to be having. Telemedication and treatment for COVID-19, again, it's part of the response and partly for the recovery stage as well, that we don't want to like burden up our the continuously burden up our healthcare system. So we need to support them through the telemedication and teletreatments of the COVID-19 cases. Or those who have recovered, we need to ensure that how can they be further treated in so that they remain safe. And as I said, very importantly, in the phase of strategic planning for the next pandemic, features will be kept on adding. So we are keeping an agile approach. So it's a car, we are like manufacturing and at the same time driving. So with the help of the authorities who are bringing on the go features, because let's agree that world has never seen this thing before. So a lot of things, all the ecosystem players are experiencing for the first time. So that's the reason why we believe that there should be many of the things happening on the go, rather than we say now we have given you the full system, or we believe on our own self that we have done the job and it is enough for the COVID outbreak country. Better to keep the agile approach, and that's how we have built up the architecture, and the whole design of the system is like that, that it can bring in new features on the go. I will we can share this like presentation later, and this is just the elaboration of the points which I have already shared. So I'll just skip these few slides, and the team behind is briefly you have got the idea that it's from the Avantas and the Max and Row team together, and that's we are like Dubai-based company, and also we have our company offices in Kuala Lumpur, Taiwan, and Taipei, and soon we'll be in other countries as well. George also with me these days today in today's webinar, and he's our global advisor. So the tech team, and on the next pages you can see it's like quite elaborative tech team on the blockchain and AI side. Rest there are of course the support staff, the marketing, and all that. This is the process overview for the architecture side. So again, I will not go deep into the tech details, and we can later share. Anyone who wants the presentation, we can share the presentation PDF, and that can be discussed with the technology team as well. This is already as a viable product. It's like a minimum viable product. Work is happening on 24/7 basis. Our tech teams are working to keep on adding their functionality layer. The application layer is done. The blockchain layer is done. So we are continually upgrading the new, adding the new features or deliverables in this app. And currently we are in the final phase of discussions with 2 government authorities, and they are going to roll it out on a production stage soon. This is the system network design, and again it is for some technical people. If they want to discuss further on this point, we can share this, and we can have a tech team meetings with them. This is something that George has explained, and I would like to elaborate that this is probably our very important feature, that we are not seeing that MEDsLOCK can only contribute as a standalone ecosystem or application. Many of the countries or authorities are already using some kind of a system. So now our team, our engineers, can integrate the features which are missing from their current systems and bring that layer of maybe the blockchain, maybe the AI features, or maybe some other advanced features which we have embedded in our MEDsLOCK. We can do the integration of those in their existing systems, and so that it will happen in the fast pace. And this is again the design of how we will do the stuff. And going forward, I'll just ask now. These are some of the technology features. Again, I don't want to consume most time, and I want to have more questions coming from your way, or we do general discussion on how, other than these features which I have just mentioned, we can also have your feedback, and you can contribute some new ideas which we can embed now into this MEDsLOCK ecosystem, and that will help the humanity. Our whole objective is not to just highlight this project as some kind of a project. It is an effort for saving lives, and it is an effort to bring the normal economic lifestyle back in a quick way, in an efficient way. It is the helping tool for the whole humanity, including the governments, including citizens, every ecosystem player, to take it forward the situation of the COVID. So from this point onwards, I'll ask the moderator, Mr. Muhammad, to take it to the question and answer session, and we are like happy to get your feedback and answer any of your question. It can be a technical, it can be a process relevant question. So Muhammad,
thank you, Anjum, for this. So now we're going to have, before getting the blockchain, what we're doing before enabling enterprise blockchain.
Okay, that's a good question. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm an educator first, and that's what was my background is. That I came from a learning and performance background, serving the defense of UAE, performance management. And 3 years back, I started exploring what's in blockchain for my field, for my space, which is the people management, basically the performance management, the education part. So that's what brought me into the blockchain space. And since then, I'm breathing blockchain. I can safely say that. You are on mute. If you can unmute and then ask the question.
Okay. When did you get into start Avantas, and before I get into MEDsLOCK, you did various projects for Makkah Municipality and UN. Can you briefly tell, just walk through the projects you have done? It's Hyperledger, or what kind of projects you have done? Yeah.
So asking this question is again, we started Avantas a year back. It's almost a year. We started having discussions about Avantas, and we formulated the company, I think, a month later in May, and incorporated it in it took another month to incorporate it. And this is we have 3 ecosystem partners, we can say. Me as the head of the operations, and then we have a group coming from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. So they have their own other crypto projects as well. Many of them are they're deep into the blockchain scene already. Sheikh Khalid bin Zayed Group is the 3rd entity in the Avantas, and they have brought their own value into the system. So we together started this as focusing on the enterprise blockchain, and we believe that 2020 or 2021 will be the year where there will be a lot of mass adoption for the blockchain enterprise solutions in the governments, in the private sector as well. So telling about our projects, the projects that we have been involved in for last 8-9 months, we are the blockchain sandbox partner with the International Civil Aviation Organization. So we've been doing the training programs for them. We are doing the one pilot project for them in collaboration with the General Civil Aviation Authority of UAE. There's another project we have deployed already in Montenegro, that is for the Capital Market Authority, and that is for the issuance of the business licenses there. Few projects with the government of Pakistan in several domains, land registry and office automation and XYZ. And the one project in, we can say, Saudi, which we are very proud of, that is with the Makkah Municipality, and that is to do a pilot project for their issuance of land registries. We all know that Makkah is one of the most valuable real estates, so they're doing it on on blockchain now. And also there's a potential we'll be doing with them for issuance of the building permits, again relevant to them. So there are discussions happening for other projects as well, but at the moment our primary focus is entirely on MEDsLOCK. My board has been very kind when I introduced this idea to them. They were very kind and allocated, I think, majority of the resources to me for this MEDsLOCK. So you can see from the black holes on my eyes, it's almost at the moment the full focus, not just on my eyes. If you will find in the majority of our team members, we've been working very tirelessly on the MEDsLOCK.
How many developers do you have now working on this?
I'm sorry, say again, please.
How many developers do you have right now working on the back end, front end?
Yeah, just if we see the engineers and the architects and developers, that there are 20 plus at the moment were like been allocated on this project. And if we add the teams of designers and the support staff, then it will go like way beyond. So I'm very, again, I should be saying this openly that I'm very kind. I appreciate my board that who supported this gesture. That they say go all out, and this is something I think the world needs, and they supported me on that.
Great. George, you are the advisor for MEDsLOCK. Just I guess both of you, any of you, can answer the question. You basically follow a policy framework, right? With data, external data from different organizations. So, what kind of policy framework do you use? And hello, George. Yeah.
See, the framework that needs to be used depends on regional basis because each country would have very different rules and regulations. So anything to do with Europe would have to be GDPR compliant. If we're talking about US, there has to be HIPAA compliant and so on. On top of that, each of the Middle East countries has additional privacy considerations, which includes the UAE, which has got privacy law, Bahrain, Saudi, and other GCC countries as well. So any kind of exchange of information needs to be able to follow those regulations as well.
Great. So Anjum, if you can unmute it, I would want to know more. You want more about Maxon, right? At this moment of time, is it used in any of the governments around the world? Yes, which other governments are using right now? And second part question is why Maxon? Why not Florida or Ledger?
All right. So yes, it's already been our main in Maxon Row, and the Montenegrin one, which that is done on Maxon Row. The other solutions which we have already completed or deployed are the document management system that we use the platform of Maxon Row for that, and then crowdfunding platform is under the development phase, and finally we are doing the STO platform on Maxon Row as well. Regarding the reason why we have preferred Maxon Row is not that it is based on our own, like we have done it in-house. It has many of the features which we started with the Hyperledger Fabric, started with the 1.4, and we also have a very good competent team doing in 2.0 as well. So we offer both flavors, but as I said, we prefer Maxon Row. We have experienced some challenges while we were doing the like development in the Hyperledger Fabric, and there are some features which we found some on a shortage point. So we brought in Maxon Row for that purpose, and the team has like been working on adding more features, and that's where we are like very great that Maxon Row has provided us a brilliant platform to handle such large-scale projects. The speed, the testing we did on that platform, the other features, they are phenomenal. We can like share the details of Maxon Row's advantages on other platforms. You have to unmute, I guess, for the next question.
Is basically the nodes, number of nodes. George, do you think having number of nodes is important here? For example, if you're sharing information or regarding healthcare, so in this case, Maxon Row, you have your own nodes. Where are these nodes? Who owns these nodes? Is it government or you want to own third party? So how are you going to take care of this? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Anjum.
Yeah, actually, this is a bit of a technical question. So yes, Maxenro has both variants, public and the private permission one. So the permission one is obviously we have done it on premises of the authorities which we have worked for or which we have deployed the projects on. Depends on their preference. The nodes can the architecture for the deployment is totally dependent on their requirements. For this again, we are very these days. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the authority we are going to deploy this MEDsLOCK with. So they will be telling us what kind of a deployment scenario. So we will suggest them the nodes, the number of nodes. So it will be totally with them. So we, as like a private entity, we are not keeping even the nodes with us, and it is the complete architecture with the government. It can be on their cloud. We can support them to put it on cloud of their choice, but we are not handling that infra part for them.
Okay. Another thing is main thing is immutability of the data. There's been discussion that Hyperledger, Hyperledger, the data is not completely immutable. So what is the situation in Maxenro? Like once you write the data, can it be changed, altered, or deleted? How does it work?
No, as I said, it's like better than the Hyperledger Fabric, but these details, I would be like would say that our CTO, if we can have another session and he can use the features of the Maxenro, why this is the preferred platform to use for the production grade projects of enterprise level. So yes, he can introduce you with the features, architecture, and such details he can give better than we are basically the mostly on the strategic side. So the technology relevant things, our team is far more competent, and the CTO can be introduced and he can answer all these questions.
Okay. So thanks. So this question may be to George. In consortium, this is a bit of consortium permission-based blockchain. How would you enable the the integrity of the members? If you're taking the information from sharing the information from different government agencies, or can be private or government organization. So even Anju can answer this. How can you ensure that the integrity, the data from these members are reliable? Because blockchain itself does not have the mechanism to basically verify the information. So what are systems are put in place, to verify, to make sure that all the data that's going, it's verifiable, and reliable.
George?
Okay, just a moment.
Thank you. There are several things that are at play here that can help solve this issue. As we know, in any kind of information system, garbage in, garbage out. So the first thing is that any kind of information that goes into the system has to be vetted and validated. So that does not mean that false information could not reach the system, but if it was to be reached, you can certainly invalidate that information by correcting it. So that's one. Number two, the people that actually enter the information into the system, and you don't make the data entry part into the system, it includes a digital signature. So the people that are providing that information have responsibility of the information they sign. That really means you're able to verify the authenticity of the information that is being put on chain. But the final element, I think, is quite important, because here we're really talking about a hybrid system. In the sense, what do I mean by hybrid? Some of the information is going to be coming from external systems that are not themselves on blockchain. So any final solution is going to be a mixture of on-chain and off-chain operations, which means that once the information reaches the chain, we can attest the authenticity of this information and the validation of it, but the information that comes from off-chain until it gets properly and digitally signed will be at risk of being false or being inaccurate. So this ensures that obviously the best accuracy you can achieve. And this is regardless of which blockchain technology that is being used.
Great. I was basically asking a question about standards of data protection. You have GDPR and you have different, kinds of protection. How many governments are we working right now, Salman? We're working in UAE.
Like for the MEDsLOCK, you mean?
Yeah, MEDsLOCK or any other projects. I'm talking in general. If you're dealing with public data, you have to have certain kind of privacy rules, in place. Now at the moment you're in Pakistan, you told me that you're in talks with the Pakistani government. So what are the do they have any enforced privacy laws there in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia? I know in UAE they have it, they have very strong rules.
Yeah, all the governments now have their data protection laws or regulations, and for the citizens as well, and for their own internal operational data as well. So primarily when we work with the government authorities, the first focus is not to get into the data side. So that layer is always with them. So to ensure that privacy, or to ensure that we can just provide them the secured, a trusted system, and then the insurance of the privacy part, the governance layer, the governance protocol defines that. So that is something, again, from all of the authorities we work with, this is different governance protocol requirement they bring in. So we have to, obviously, we are providing them a customized solution. So they need to share us their governance protocol relevant to the data privacy for their own operations and for their data relevant to their citizens. But this is for sure that we don't deal with the citizens' data by any means on a blockchain layer. I mean, yeah.
Okay, great. George, and I guess this question is both. It's question of interoperability. For example, right now you have consortium, right? And the problem is that different blockchain systems right now, you have Ethereum, you have Hyperledger, you have Corda, public, permissionless. Now, blockchain advocates have been saying that blockchain enables interoperability. But just this question I'm thinking out loud because I've been playing around with smart contracts, and recently I used to write a smart contract, which is like 2-month-old version. So when you compiling means it converts the human code to computer understandable code. Just 2-month-old version, it gives two completely different results, right? So I'm thinking out loud here. If Ethereum, for example, if Hyperledger wants to talk to Ethereum, okay, wants to get data from Ethereum, or even to take data from Corda, don't you think this rapid change, because there's a lack of standards at the moment, concrete standards among the blockchain systems, right? So don't you think we'll have problems? Like you're trying to solve one problem, one interoperability problem, and you're creating new problems, between communicating between two completely different blockchain systems. So how do you think, how can you solve this problem? I just want to get your viewpoint.
Okay, well, there's several things that are actually quite important to answer that question. First, today we don't have single blockchain standard. The work is being worked on one.
Yeah.
So there is really no interoperability between blockchains, at least no interoperability that has to be programmed by a third party. So that really means today, if you're trying to integrate multiple blockchains, and even more important, multiple patient and other systems, such as what Mohammed is trying to do, there has to be a lot of basically pipes and conversion of information that needs to happen. The good news is that we actually have local resource in UAE. He is not here today, or maybe he is, Andreas Sindos, that specializes exactly in blockchain interoperability. So Andreas, through its work in the last 2 or 3 years, he's got a group of developers working for him. So he has specialized basically in blockchain interoperability. So that means when you need to integrate information from various blockchains into a single pipe, he has developed these multi-chain pipes so that you can easily build that integration. A little bit what we used to do a few years ago. I mean, if you remember, in the early days of relational databases, every relational database added its own SQL, which means it was very difficult to write a piece of code that could talk to multiple relational databases at the same time, until Microsoft came up with a standard called ODBC, Open Database Connectivity. And what they did is they basically standardized the way you talked to a relational database, both at the SQL statement level as well as at the API level. So this is a bit of the work that Andreas has done at the blockchain level. So we can leverage his and his team knowledge as we may require it in the future.
Great. So this question is basically about your business model. What is your business model? How do you how do you make money? Is it like as a service, monthly based, or per use basis, or PPP, private public partnership?
Yes, it is a public PPE, public-private alliance. But if you can see the commercial model or the model of business model, we can say, let alone if we are doing it for commercial reasons or non-profit reasons, that is a separate thing. But there is a base license which is going to be used for as a white labeled MEDsLOCK, and then there will be customization based on each authority. There will be new features based on their requirements, process flows, customization, and some other reporting dashboard kind of changes. So that is the second cost which will incur to this MEDsLOCK business model. And third, of course, is the maintenance and enhancement service agreements. So these are the three areas how it will be having a business model. But transaction-wise, no, we don't see this will be going into that phase. Because again, it's the primary user is the government, so authorities of the government. So going into the transaction model is a bit this is a more easier model to work with them, and especially when it comes to the OPEX model. So CAPEX is something when you can build and transfer, but in this case of OPEX model, I think this is a better way, and it's a win-win for every person, every player involved in the business.
Great. So I have one final question because we're running out of time before we open the floor to questions. George, I guess you can throw a light on this. Where do you see blockchain 3 years from now? Where do you see, and what things blockchain are doing right now? You would like to see implemented? They're doing right now, and where do you see like 3 years from now?
Well, actually, that's too many questions in one, but I'll try to summarize it as quickly as possible. First, I think blockchain over the last 1 or 2 years has moved into the enterprise space, which means that we're now using blockchain to solve enterprise or corporations or government business problems. So typically, corporation business problems are different than just money transfer problems, which is Bitcoin as the first implementation of blockchain. So blockchain needs to mature in many areas. One is by having standards. Without standards, big issue. The second one, there has to be standards or standardization on interoperability, on language support. There has to be much better performance because as we move forward, we need to achieve millions of transactions per second, not 20, not 50, not 1,000, which is certainly not enough. We also need the better consensus mechanisms. Today, most blockchains only use one or two. So we need to have the flexibility of using the applicable consensus mechanism that it fits the business problem that you're trying to solve. Other than that, I do think that the most successful blockchain solutions that we will see in the future are the ones where you don't see the blockchain. You know, blockchain is a technology. I mean, when you drive a car, do you care how the piston moves up and down the motor? And no, you drive the car from the wheel and the accelerator or whatever. Maybe soon we'll drive it from the brain. But the point is, it's the user interface that really matters, not the blockchain as the technology. So I do think the best and most successful blockchain technologies are the ones that where you don't know blockchain is being used. And we have examples of that in UAE. There's one company called Liquid. I don't know if they're in town now or not in this call, but certainly they have developed a system that is being used today by the hotels, and you don't actually know blockchain is being used. So I consider that to be in itself a big success.
Great. User interface, scalability, interoperability, standards are some of the things to implement. So yes, we have like 15 minutes to ask questions. So I have first question from Zahid, who's an IT professional in FAB Bank. He asked me he's basically asking the panelists, what do you think? Can blockchain be used as a service, or can governments themselves, after a few months, implement themselves, the blockchain system? What he's meaning is, I guess, would the governments always require a service, or they'll bring in-house, in-house talent and manage it themselves?
Joe, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. So this is actually several questions into one, which are a little bit tricky. So first is whether you run the chain in a public or a private mode, permission or permissionless. Certainly in enterprises, you want to make sure that you run it in-house because it makes more sense. But then you have to make sure you have enough nodes so that the blockchain is reliable. But yes, the same way happen in cloud services like Amazon, Google, etc. We are now seeing blockchain services being offered as a cloud service, like the Cocoa protocol developed, for example, by Microsoft. So that means you can literally put the blockchain service in a public cloud system while at the same time implementing a private blockchain solution. The last point is always, or the next one is a bit tricky, because in reality, most organizations today in IT don't have the skilled resources to be able to necessarily develop in-house the systems, or they're just too slow to respond to the business solution problem. So it makes sense for these organizations to actually seek outsourcing of these solutions. And of course, Avantas is one of the organizations, but we do have others in Dubai that in some cases have up to over 100 developers. I don't know if Mr. Fernandez is on the line or not, but by having over 100 developers in blockchain, they have the capability to develop the blockchain you need. So you can go to them and say, this is my requirement, and they turn it into a finished product, and then you use it yourself later on. This certainly makes more sense today for most smaller organizations, because you see, in business, the thing you cannot get enough is time. So you cannot start, okay, let me go and learn about blockchain. Oh, let me learn, etc. So no, you just go, you get this as a turnkey solution, and you use it, and eventually you can build that knowledge in-house, but you can do that as phase 2, not as phase 1.
Salman, will add to that?
Yes, actually, if we referring to the blockchain as a service platforms available on several clouds now, I believe we have tried initially when we were like coming up with the enterprise blockchain solutions, and we tested few of them. Nothing is production ready yet. So yes, you can do POCs on them at max pilot, but production ready, no. For that, you need to have your own protocol. I mean to say, whether you use it as like a Hyperledger Fabric, or there are like several others available. We use Max and Row, we use Hyperledger Fabric as well. So it depends which is your choice and what is the reason behind that. But blockchain as a service is still, I think, it will be a few years for this to get matured. And there are so many variables at the moment which these platforms need to address. And especially when it comes to the enterprise, so much of the customization is required. So you need to be having a full control on the protocol itself.
All right, great. So we have questions from, the first is from, I guess, Pekka Kelka. He's asking, as we all know, Apple and Google are developing own protocol for contact tracing. Any plans to integrate on it? If you could elaborate what is contact tracing to audience who don't know what is contact tracing. Yeah, before that.
See, contact tracing, I did have one slide on this in my presentation. Is the capability to identify how an individual comes in close contact with other individuals over a period of time. There is many multitudes of technologies that can be used to implement this. One is the traditional GPS technology provided by mobile phones. However, there's problems associated with that technology, and it's something called resolution. What does it mean? It means if you have two people that are close to each other using just the GPS determined from the triangulation of the cellular towers that's being used today by Google Maps, for example, whether or not you're using the GPS signal, that means you have a resolution of, let's say, up to 10 meters. So 5 meters is not enough to determine if two people have become in contact, let's say, within a meter or less of each other. So that really means that you have various choices. One is you can increase the clock accuracy of the cellular tower. And there's a solution that provides this, and it's quite expensive because you have to basically update the mobile infrastructure to include that clock accuracy. The other approach is by using other technologies that are available already on the phones that enable that lower resolution. One is Bluetooth and others. So you can use a combination of GPS and Bluetooth to determine if individuals have become in contact over a period of time. So you have the information that is available from the telco operators, which is one. The other one is the information that is available by the mobile itself. So of course, people need to give permissions for this information to be shareable, etc. But what this really gives you is a picture or like a video over time of how you as an individual moves around in a 3D space, and how other individuals move in that same 3D space by coming in close contact with you. So that really means you can then create a model in which if one person got infected at 5 p.m. today, who came in close touch with that person between 5 p.m. and midnight, which was the time that we actually found that he had this COVID-19. So this contact tracing will be able to have this complete history, which means that then you can use this information to notify the other people that he came in contact with, and those people came in contact with other people, so it's actually a multi-dimensional solution. And have those people being tested, have those people being isolated, or whatever risk control measures you put in place to then, what you're really trying to do is this contact tracing is a mechanism to contain or to decelerate the contamination of the virus, so to prevent the virus from spreading to more people or to spread faster, to slow it down as much as possible. Okay. Now, Google and Apple have installed in their updates that are coming, some are today, tomorrow, next day, to enable this new contact tracing. In absence of these, the two applications that I mentioned, one from UAE and the other one from Bahrain, and the other ones that are coming down the pipe, enable this to actually, they have this capability, this function already built in, either by just using the mobile by itself or by using the mobile in combination with the bracelet technology.
Great, great. I guess we have some really great questions, so I have to, if you could wrap things up, it'd be great. This question is by Harshat Power. How will you be managing regulatory compliance issues in different industries? That's a really great question.
I guess when it comes to the enterprise blockchain solutions, the regulations are not that much of a concern, because you are developing a solution or a technology. It's not about you're touching some kind of a regulatory part. That comes into play when there are some issues with the financial transactions and all that. We are not enabling that part here. For the regulations of privacy and data protection, yes, of course, whosoever we are providing this solution will be adhered according to their policies. And there is, yes, one more thing is about the electronic signature, which will be the a paramount feature of this application. Obviously, there are protocols and there are regulations relevant to that, which our team is adhering.
Okay, great. This question is from Christian Chalfon. I don't know if I spelled the last name right. Why we are using blockchain, since the sole owner of the nodes, consensus, and data will be the government? Does it will be easier to use our traditional database? This is really on the point question.
Well, it's I think a fair question to ask, and that's something now people need to realize, that blockchain offers a lot more than just the factor of we can say mutability. Beyond that, there is always an element of trust, which is the first deliverable of a blockchain. But then there is a cost element as well involved in this aspect of bringing in the distributed architecture, efficiency and exchange of the data. So plenty other aspects which enterprise blockchain solutions are offering, which the normal or legacy the legacy centralized databases are not offering. So beyond this immutability factor, our consensus protocol offered by the public blockchain protocols, even the permission blockchain environment is offering so many other benefits, which generally these days are not offered by the legacy database systems.
Okay. The other question is, there will be a huge amount of transactions. How do you handle the needed TPS? Because if you are using different, different industries, we require different scalability standards. So this question is, how would you handle the scalability issue? Does Maxrow has the consensus in place to scale up? And if yes, how many TPS, how many transactions per second can you do, Max?
I think it's, I have to come up with the proper numbers, which we can share later with anyone. What is the TPS at the moment, and will be scalable later. But it is designed in a horizontal architecture way, so that whatever is required for the scalability as an infrastructure that is also based on the transactions happening on the system, because initially we don't see there will be many more transactions happening, but gradually it will scale up with authority and it will have more and more transactions running on it. So they have this is also another feature of this architecture which we are offering, and the blockchain solutions are offering now, that they are horizontally scalable. So the infra required for them is they can scale it based on the requirement of the data.
How many transactions can it do? Like, what's the cap? Any idea?
Sorry, say again?
How many transactions per second can it do?
I think if I'm not, give me just 1 minute. You can ask another question to George. I will get the exact.
Okay. So this question also is MEDsLOCK. I don't know if you can answer that. So this question is by Arfan Anjum. Can MEDsLOCK be effectively integrated with existing disaster management systems?
Yeah, that's like a primary feature. We have started developing the architecture that any other system which all authorities have been working with, they are having some kind of like all existing system. So that's the first feature we worked on, that how we can integrate the features of MEDsLOCK with the existing ones. So they don't have to go for a standalone MEDsLOCK, and they can we can migrate the data, we can do the interoperability between their existing systems. So these are the features which again on one slide we have mentioned, and again can be discussed in detail by the tech team.
So this, I guess, can be answered by both. Should this kind of huge system need a decentralized data storage? Basically, they're asking, there's some data requiring media or any other information which is huge data, huge. This one, what do you call, how many MBs, gigabytes of data? Is it efficient to is Mac so efficient to store this huge data information? Yeah. If or you have something like Ethereum IPFS, where externally they store data and access it, whenever they want. So who's gonna answer this? Yeah. So Anjum.
Yes, again, it's relevant to the Maxenro or our platform. So I think if I had an idea that there will be many technology relevant questions coming up, so we would have asked some technology guy to be in, and he would have answered these all. It's not, I guess, for me to give any wrong answers. So better if we arrange the calls, or we can reach out to the people who have asked these questions. I guess we have the data. They have used some email or some other ID they have shared with us. So we definitely will answer these questions in a detail through a proper person from the project.
You can also email me. I'll just the answers. So email them everybody. Email everybody the answers for the unanswered questions. So the time is almost up. So before you leave, I would love to make an announcement of another event which is going to take place. Let me just see if you are seeing the view. So on April 16, we have the U.S. professionals in healthcare. We're going to discuss about telemedicine. We're going to talk about healthcare information management, telehealth. We have some people, Wasim, who runs Donor. We have President Girard Bechet, and some of the professionals from U.S. healthcare. And we're going to discuss deep about what are they doing, tackling the pandemic, and some updated systems. So stay tuned on April 16, 5:30 p.m. It's almost the same time as this one. So thanks the panelists. Thanks Anjum. Thanks George for being here, and thanks audience for staying with us all this time. And after, I guess tomorrow you're gonna send a feedback form. If you love feedback, what we can do, whom you want to see, whom you want to see speak, please let me know. So this is your host, Mohd Shahnawaz, signing out. Have a great day and stay home, stay safe. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you. Cheers,
Thanks.
George. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.